Today's verse comes from 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, which reads, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love." 1 John chapter 4 is one of my favorite chapters in the whole Bible. In fact, on my wedding ring, 1 John 4:12 is engraved, and it says, "No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us." God living in us and using us to be his hands and feet. God is love. Another truth that we learn from 1 John chapter 4. But here we also learn in verse 18 that perfect love drives out fear. And so when the fear comes, we need to go back to God. We need to ask God to drive out that fear, because that fear is not in keeping with his perfect will for our lives. He loves us, and he doesn't want us to be afraid. He wants us to live each and every day in the light of his goodness, and in the light of his love, and in the light of his presence, that we would know he's with us, and that we would know that nothing happens in this world that is outside of his sovereign control. God is sovereign, even though it feels like the whole world is going crazy with this pandemic. In fact, our former way of life is totally being shaken. Stock markets completely shaken, entertainment completely shaken, travel industry completely shaken. Everything that can be shaken is being shaken. But God's word reminds us that we have a kingdom that can never be shaken, a kingdom that he has established when Jesus rose from the dead, and a kingdom that is not based on fear or violence. It is a kingdom of love. And anyone who's experienced love has experienced a little bit of God, a foretaste of who God is. Whatever love you have ever received in this life is just a little taste of how good God is, of how loving God is, of how generous and gracious and amazing God is. God is perfect love. Every love that we've experienced in this life is imperfect love. But even that imperfect love that is so wonderful and so great, it pales in comparison to that perfect love. And that's why we need to let God be that source of perfect love for us, because that perfect love will drive out fear. When we base our lives on that perfect love, when we make love the center of our lives and we orbit around that central truth, then everything comes into alignment in our lives. But when we align ourselves with something other than love, when we put ourselves at the center, as many of us often do, when we put work at the center, or family at the center, or something other than God at the center, it's like our lives are pulled out of balance. I'm not saying that family or work or any of these things are not important. They certainly are, in the proper balance. God has to be at the center. And when God's at the center, then his perfect love can drive out fear. You might be wondering, why am I doing these daily devotionals on God's word and how not to fear? Well, I think many of us wrestle with fear, myself included. It's easy to get afraid. I was at home, and there's nothing really to fear very much. But I went to the grocery store to do some shopping, something I normally wouldn't do because I have low white blood cell count. I have a compromised immune system, and they're telling us that those with compromised immune system should not go out. But Henry has broken his arm, so he can't go out shopping for me. I need to shop for some elderly people and myself, ourselves as well. And when I went into the store, everything was fine. But then, things reminded me of COVID-19. They gave us the wipe to wipe down the grocery cart, and I got afraid. I wanted to get out of that grocery store as quickly as possible because I don't want to encounter the virus. So I think I'm not alone in dealing with fear. I'm doing these devotionals not only for your benefit, but also for my benefit to encourage myself from His Word. And if nobody else is encouraged, I certainly am, because perfect love drives out fear. And there's nothing to fear when Jesus is in control and Jesus is at the center. So God bless. Have a great day. And may you know that perfect love is with you, and that perfect love will protect you from all fear and from anything that comes your way today.